Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining Painting with Picasso's Grapevine. My name is Leanna Hahn, and I'll be your host and your teacher for today. So today we're going to look at this really cool fall painting. And for those of you who also live in Michigan, such as myself, this is why I'm here. I love this time of year. And when you look up at the trees and you see that really bright, crisp light kind of shining through, to me that just says fall. So what we're going to do today is kind of show you how to do this at home. Hopefully you learn something very valuable. You'll get really brave and try this and really enjoy it. For today, we are going to be using 3 brushes. I have my very large brush, my medium, and my very small #1 round. And we have quite a few different colors today, lots of those nice fall colors. So we've got some alizarin crimson, we've got some cobalt blue, we've got some phthalo turquoise, we have a couple dabbles of white here. I have a Venetian red, cad yellow, red, and cad orange. So nice, a lot of those nice fall colors to get you going. And as always, we have our dab rag for dabbing off our paintbrushes and our water for washing off our paintbrushes as well. So to kick this off, we always take a look at our painting and say, okay, what comes first? So what's our background, what's our foreground? We're going to be starting off with our sky, which is of course our background first, and kind of get that out on the canvas. Then you folks at home will let that kind of dry for maybe like 5-7 minutes. That should be enough. Again, we're using acrylic paint today, so that'll dry very fast. And then we'll kind of work on building up our layers for our nice leaves here. So just a lot of dabbing, a lot of blotting, and really just varying the colors. And something I want to kind of point out here, and it'll kind of help with the composition and structure. We're going to start out with our midtones, and we're kind of deciding where we're going to put our blotches. You'll notice here, I've kind of clumped them, and as they remove or kind of come out of their clump, they get nice and sparse, nice little points here. That's kind of a little bit more realistic to how trees kind of grow and develop. So keep that in mind. You don't want to have just a big solid clump, because it's not going to be, something's going to look off in your eye and you can't figure out what it is. A lot of times what you got to do is kind of let it grow, let it extend. Another thing I'm going to point out is that at the base here, you're going to see the darker colors, and as we get closer to the light, they lighten up. So we're going to be jumping a lot between all those beautiful colors on our palette today to kind of help create that. So if you are ready to get started, we're going to start on our background, and we're going to grab our very large brush, go ahead, dip that in our water, dab it off, and we're going to be jumping between our 3 colors right here. So we have our cobalt blue, our cad turquoise, and our white, and we're just kind of mixing those together, making a nice hodgepodge. This has got a nice light feeling for our sky. Now typically we do this pretty quickly. We're going to keep all of our strokes moving horizontally, left and right. And we do that because we want to get that nice blended feel. So quick moving kind of helps you to get a nice transition between the 3 colors. So as you see, I'm just continually going back and forth between the 3, kind of mixing it. And then of course when I'm placing it here on the canvas, I kind of still continue to mix it. So we're just kind of getting to what you feel is a good color for your canvas. Now as I'm placing the paints on, I'm not giving too much care. So I'm just kind of setting them on the canvas, getting them out there. Once I get good coverage, and you'll know that because you're not going to see any of that dimpling showing through. So that's your canvas telling you you need more paint. Once I get good coverage, then what I do is I kind of do those nice cleanup strokes. So I'll do nice broad strokes, left and right. Make sure we get all the way from one side to the other. We're going to try and keep those strokes nice and horizontal. But we still want to see some of those colors kind of shining through, because that's a little bit more realistic to what you see in the sky. Now as we transition down the canvas, I'm not going to give too much care for how much is blue versus how much is turquoise versus white. That truly is up to you. That's your personal taste. The only emphasis I'm going to make is to kind of come back up here to the top, this little section here. If you remember on our original, that's where the light was shining through. So I'm going to add just a little bit more white, just to kind of give it a little bit of a highlight compared to the rest of the sky. So again, just get those brushes nice. And folks, don't forget that these are wraparound canvases. So as you're touching the tops of these canvases, make sure you take the time to kind of cover that up. That'll just give you a nice option at home. So if you wanted to hang it on the wall without a nice frame, you could do so and it looks complete. So what I've done is to kind of save us some time today, I went ahead and completed one in advance. So you can kind of see the after product after you kind of get everything on here. So you notice again, we've got those nice little streaks here and there, just kind of showing that the wind is blowing and you get a little bit of the blue, a little bit of the white. We're not going to get too harsh with our streaks here because we just want that to be background. So we just kind of want some activity going in the back. We're not really going to focus on that. We're going to focus more on the foreground. So to start working on the foreground, I'm going to move over into our tiny little brush, dab it in the water, dab it off on our dab rag, and I'm going to put just a few little lines out here for our tree limbs, just to kind of set the pace, kind of set the location of where we're going to have a few of these. You can add more later, you can change how thick they are, you can kind of make them grow a little bit. Make sure that as you are placing these on the canvas, kind of remember how limbs actually grow. So we've got a lot of limbs, they're always crooked. It's very rare you see a tree limb actually very straight. So you'll notice they kind of change directions. It's almost like they're constantly changing their mind with the wind. So the wind kind of gets a hold of them and they take off on another direction. Again, when you are drawing them out here, you generally want to make them thicker at the base, and as they get farther and farther away, make them thinner until you can almost not see where the edge is. There. And so we'll just put a couple on there and just kind of let that sit out. Then we're going to move into our medium brush. So a lot of brushes I have are brand new and a lot of them are kind of worn and torn and loved. If you have a worn and torn loved one, that would be excellent for this kind of painting because we're just going to be doing a lot of pushing and blotting. We kind of want something that's already kind of been beaten up a little bit so you'll get a nice good feel. Another tip and trick that when you are hitting the canvas, what you want to do is change the direction. Every time you hit the canvas, change the direction because you're going to create a pattern. We as humans love patterns. It's just the way we're hardwired. And we tend to hit it in the same direction every time. And then again, it looks weird. You're like, why are all these leaves all in the same direction? So force yourself to turn. Another trick, if you are having a hard time controlling that, is keep turning your canvas. So if you are hitting it in one direction, you just can't get yourself, do a little bit like this. Turn the canvas, do a little bit like this, turn the canvas. So it kind of forces you to hit it in another direction. So we're going to start out with our medium tone, which is our orange. So we're going to start putting some of those blots out on the canvas. We're going to just kind of decide where are those clumps going to be. So I'm just starting out with some clumping. It's going to take a while before this really develops and you start seeing it come to fruition. It starts with just a lot of dabbing and blotting. And again, because this is my first attempt at creating these nice little clumps, I'm not giving it too much focus on turning the edge of the paintbrush. It'll be more important as we are finishing up and adding those final dabbing and blotting. So as a process, or as a rule of thumb, at least for myself and working with acrylics especially, because you're doing so much of the layering and building up, I typically will always start with the mid-tone. So what's the middle tone? So I'm going to do highlights, I'm going to do lowlights, I have a middle tone. Traditionally you want to work with 3. I will normally start with the middle tone because you can always lighten up from there And you can always darken down as well. Another hint, just because we've placed these limbs right here doesn't mean there's not another limb going on somewhere in the middle. So often I see people who are afraid to move away from the limbs, so they tend to kind of clump everything right around like, oh, we can only have these leaves right on the limbs. So be brave. Start putting some of your clumps just wherever you like. Doesn't have to be attached. It can be small. So I've kind of decided, all right, here's my first layer of blotting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in and start taking it down just a little bit deeper. And I'm going to come in with this nice Venetian red. So let's kind of add some blots around there. Now, you don't want to necessarily cover up everything. I'm going to focus my darker colors towards the bottom. Again, saving the lighter colors closer to the top. Just continue that dabbing process. And make sure too that you leave some holes here. We want to be able to see the sky through. Remember, this is fall. Leaves are falling. You don't have that many leaves on the tree, so we don't need a truly full tree. Now I'm transitioning into my alizarin crimson. Again, putting the focus more towards the bottom of each one of these little clumps. And I'm starting to kind of form them a little more. At this point, I am being more conscious of how I hit the canvas. I'm turning it. And just kind of continuing all the way through here. Now, if you feel at any point that you've put too much of one color or another, go back, grab that orange, grab that Venetian. It's never too late. You can go back and start reintroducing it. So if you just go, oh, you know, too much of this color or too much of one other color, that's okay. It's never too late. Grab some of that orange, put it right on top. I'm now going to go ahead and grab some of the brilliant red and start dropping that in here. And just kind of build it up. Looks like I grab a little bit of white. At this point, you're kind of coloring in and starting to complete some of those holes. And I would say make them heavier towards the bottom. Heavier meaning more dots towards the bottom of each one of your clumps. And then let's start kind of bringing up some of these little sparse pieces. And I just kind of continue them out. Just start building them up. So this is kind of one of those paintings that you're going to want to play with. You may step back and say, you know what? I like this, I don't like this. This is my opportunity to kind of say, all right, I need to start turning some dots in another direction. Of course, I'm trying to stay on the side here so you can see this as I'm painting in front of it. But for you folks at home, stop, take a step back, take a look. Is everything starting to look very patterned? If you do that, take this opportunity to redirect. At this point, I'm starting to kind of build up some of those little peaks. And then emphasizing where the light and where the darkness is. So I went ahead and I grabbed some yellow. At this point, we're going to start kind of bringing down our lighter colors. Remember what I told you to kind of bring out those little peaks. And if you need to kind of jump a few, one or two, somewhere kind of in the back, that's okay. You just want to weight them heavily more towards where the light is shining through. You see as that yellow really starts to complete the picture. Never too late. Grab some of that alizarin. Fill in some of those darker areas. Don't forget to create that difference. And then highlight it with the yellows. Again, remember that flashlight effect? So we're going to have a flashlight shining through. And so if that flashlight is here, if you can visualize a beam, make sure that you're placing your nice yellow highlights where that beam is going to land. And again, most importantly, take that step back, take a look at what you're doing, get a feel for it. If you want to add some more limbs, you can have some nice little peaks showing out here. And that way you get a nice composition. This is one you can definitely spend some time at home, kind of play with. Now, I'm going to go back to the original and just add a few of those streaked highlights, because what you're going to have to do is you are going to have to let that painting dry nice and solid before you do this very last step. Or you're just going to streak out all of this beautiful work that you've just completed, which you don't want to do. So you want to make sure you let that dry. And then with that same medium brush, we'll come in and we're going to grab a little bit of our white and a little bit of our yellow. So you want like a nice lemon. And what you're going to do is you're going to just kind of bring out those streaks. Now, what I'd like you to do too is make sure you have that nice straight line going through, but break it up here. So in the front here, I've chose to put my streak coming down. Then I kind of stopped here, continued on a little bit, and then continued on down. So it kind of gives it a little bit more realistic look where that light is shining through. Some of the leaves are in front of the beam of light. Some of the leaves are behind the beam of light. So you're just kind of using that nice yellow and white combination, nice lemon. At some point you may put more emphasis on the white and jump around. Let that beam kind of jump in front of some of those leaves and let it kind of fall behind. Use a very, very light amount of paint on your brush, very light. You want to see some of that dimpling coming through, so it's kind of a shimmering through. And then have fun with it. Hopefully you've enjoyed this and you've picked up some nice tips, some tricks, and got some bravery behind your belt to try this at home. If you'd like to learn more about how to make some of these paintings, send us an email to info@picassosgrapevine.com. Thank you for joining us.